Hey there, Mama. It's your friend, Karina O'Brien, and welcome to the Working Mama podcast. In today's episode, I'm thrilled to be joined by parenting expert Gen Muir for an insightful chat about navigating transitions, from starting preschool or primary school to welcoming a new sibling into the family. We'll explore the emotional roller coaster these moments can bring for both kids and parents, practical tips to ease the journey, and how to build resilience and connection during these times of significant change. If you've ever wondered how to handle these big emotions or felt overwhelmed by the juggle, this episode is packed with actionable advice to help you through it. Trust me, you are not alone. Jen and I are here to help you. Let's get started. Welcome to the Working Mama podcast, a show that provides real-world tips, tricks, and advice to all working mamas on how they can have a career, family, and hopefully one day break the glass ceiling. Welcome back to the Working Mama podcast. How's your day going so far?
It's really good. I got some personal training in. I go and do some weights in the morning with a group of mums. So a bit of self-care has happened. So I feel good.
Oh, that's amazing. I'm very jealous. Well, welcome back. It's actually the second time. I'm very fortunate and very lucky to have you on as a guest. But for those of people that listening that don't know of you, would you be able to give a little bit of background on what's been your parenting journey so far?
My parenting journey, I'm a mum of 4 boys. I'm also a social worker. And I came into parenting thinking I'd probably win the mumming Olympics because I really was quite well read. I knew the parent I wanted to be. I found it much harder on the ground than I ever anticipated to be that person in the moment, which sent me on a bit of a personal journey to work out what kids need and why it's so hard to be that person in the moment, which has since then, as my kids have gotten older, evolved into a completely sort of slightly different career where I'm now working in the space and assisting other parents to do the same thing.
And it's so amazing. And you do so much in this space. I have to say, you've got and I'll do a plug for you, a very helpful, informative Instagram account. You've got podcasts, you've got a book, programs, you've got it all really to support parents, don't you?
I'm working on it. And yeah, definitely. Now that I've got the book and the podcast, I love having those resources there for parents. I also do one-on-one sessions and I speak a bit as well.
Fantastic. So today, I know there's so much we could talk about, but today we're going to focus in on transitions because I don't know about you, but I was really surprised at the different moments of and the different transitions that we go through. So that's what today is going to be all about, which I'm very excited. What are some of those common challenges parents face when managing the many transitions that there are coming into and raising children? Because there's a myriad of them, but what are some of those real challenges?
So many. But really, we go through these enormous transitions, don't we? As parents, we become a parent. We have that whole first year, which is an enormous transition, I think, into becoming a parent, learning how to work out how to do it, all of that. I think that then there is another transition period when we go back to work and we learn how to juggle. Another one when we have a second baby and we learn to assist the older child with managing sharing us with a whole other person. Another really big transition is going to be when kids start daycare or preschool. And a huge one is the start of prep or kindy. It's a really massive one for kids. And I think it's bigger these days than it used to be. And we can talk about why that is. So there's all of those transitions happening for our kids. We adapt every time they're adapting. But transitions are generally going to be harder for our little humans, for our kids, than they are for us, simply because of the way our emotional development works in human beings, and that our kids are sort of not really able to process emotions in the way we do until they're in their mid-20s. And so especially when they're very young, anytime there is a change in our kids' lives, they're going to process that change. The example I would give you, a child can start kindergarten or prep. They can love being a school kid. They can love everything that's happening to them. And you can still be experiencing enormous meltdowns or struggles getting them to and from school at home. And this isn't because they're not loving school. It's because kids kind of almost grieve the world they knew, which was safe and reliable and predictable. And so whenever there's a change, they can love the change, but still be processing all the emotions that come with all of that different stuff. So yeah, there's a lot that happens in parenting.
There sure is. And when you were just saying about kid going to prep, I had that exact scenario at the start of the year. It would actually seem to be whenever I dropped my son off, he would literally be holding onto the pole or into the room, holding onto me. At one point, we needed both his teacher and a teacher's aide to actually, in a very nice way, hold him so I could
Yep.
actually leave. And it was hard both on him as well as me. I was bawling my eyes out leaving, and then also he's there. He settled down relatively quick, and he'd been at childcare since he was 9 months old. So that's why I thought, oh, the transition will be fine.
That's right.
But clearly, as you're saying, it's that transition as well of what was, I guess, their safe zone.
I think it's the transition of the safe zone. I mean, I see a lot more of this, I think, these days. And I think one of the reasons is that we are asking more of children at the beginning of primary school now. So when we look back in 1984, which is the year I was in kindy, um, we maybe could sing the alphabet by the end of kindergarten, right? You painted all day long, much like what kids are doing at preschool or at daycare now. And so we get these kids into kindergarten now. Not only are they navigating, less staff to children ratios, so that's more dynamics in the playground to get their heads around, sort of unscaffolded. They've got to navigate more independence with toileting, lunch boxes, all of that. But they've got to navigate the academic demands as well, just significant. And then on top of that, we often enroll them in team sports. They're often also doing swimming lessons and their dance classes or whatever else you've got them in these days. We are so busy. And I think that demand on a little human, even a little human that actually is loving it, they're going to struggle to say goodbye. They're going to hold on to that pole, not because they don't love kindy, but just because this is a really hard shift or transition for me to do from being that person I am at home where it's safe to being the person I need to be here in this school environment where I'm expected to hold it together and regulate emotions. And sometimes I really want the yellow pencil and there's only one in the pack and I'm not going to get the yellow pencil and I'm still
And
with
you've got 16 kids that all want that yellow pencil.
So there's just so much for them. And, I say to parents now, if you are putting a kid into prep or kindergarten, beginning of primary school, really don't be preparing to emotionally regulate them for 1 week. Be preparing for a year.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds like a long time, but truly it will be a year. And we really have to look at, well, how can we support them emotionally so that they go the best they can and we survive it? But there's got to be a lot in it in terms of as parents, and particularly if you're working, you're going to have to be around more. There's things they're going to need you to turn up at. There's so many more demands for us as well as we adjust to becoming a school parent.
Yeah, definitely. So how can we do that? Like, and as you're saying, it's not just preparing them for a week, it's for a year. And a school year is a very long year.
Mm.
Even, I guess, even in childcare, kindergarten, like it's all of that away from, I guess, that home safe environment. So how can we prepare our kids?
So the first thing I think we can do, and we can start doing this from, 6 months old, which I know sounds a long way out, but the biggest thing our kids are not getting a ton of opportunity to do these days is increase their frustration tolerance or their ability to navigate disappointment. Think about a world where, again, tracking back, I'm harping on about my youth, sounding like an old lady, but in 1984, if you played Pass the Parcel, there was one prize.
Yeah.
And now our kids, everybody wins a prize. Every time you turn up to sport, everybody gets a lolly
Yeah.
snack. You know,
In
everybody.
the 80s? No way.
No, it was rough out there. We were lucky to get a cut up piece of orange. So we're sort of asking kids to then get into that school environment where they will have to navigate a lot of disappointment. Like,
Yeah.
it's tolerable disappointment, but there are disappointments like it's the pencil or it's someone doesn't want to play with you or it's just whatever it is, you didn't get picked in what the group you wanted. So one of the things we can do, and the best way to do this is through play, and I don't want to add to the mental load of parents, but increasing frustration tolerance from really young can all happen from the age that your 6-month-old or your 1-year-old is just beginning to play. They might be reaching for a ball on the floor and we start to narrate out loud and, kids will show a bit of frustration. Now, our instinct as parents, especially these days, we don't like it when our kids are sad. We feel responsible for that. We're going to push the ball towards our child. Now, I'm going to sound a little bit harsh when I say this, but our mind shift is this is a great opportunity to practice frustration. And so we say just from 6 months old or 2 years old or 1 year old, we say, oh, yeah, you're trying to reach that ball. It's hard. And you're not going to leave your child stuck in that frustration to the point they're crying their eyes out, begging for help, and you're not going to help the poor little baby. You're kind of going to narrate that out loud. And we're looking for the cue in of our child to sort of see, do they want the help? Do they not want the help? I know this sounds ridiculously simple, and how does this connect to kindy? But it massively does. Then we have kids that are, they're building their Lego Duplo tower in preschool and the tower falls over and we want to say, it's okay, I'll rebuild it, I'll make it better, I will fix this. We don't want the tantrum, we don't want the meltdown. And again, we've got this opportunity to build that frustration tolerance by going, oh my goodness, you worked so hard on that and you are so disappointed. Now, this plays out not just in kindy, but I said to you earlier, I have a 15-year-old and a couple of years ago, he worked really hard to be in a specific basketball team and he got dropped from that team. And for him, this was devastating. And I remember coming to his room and he was really sad. And I remember sort of looking at him and thinking, I'm so glad we've been practicing this sitting within struggle, but not for him, for me. Because then I was able to sit in that struggle without feeling like I had to rush in and do something. So that's a bit long-winded, but that's I think, one of the biggest things we can do. The next thing that we can do from really young for preschoolers is really allow them an opportunity to work on those social skills. So I think the idea is long gone that we want our kids to be writing their name and reading books and being able to sit, and they would be the signs that our child is ready to learn. We're very much looking at a world where our kids are going to need robust social and emotional skills. So for me, I'm very much not concerned about reading and writing. In fact, I would actively say, don't do that stuff. Let your child play. Let them navigate climbing a tree and the frustration of not quite being able to do it and how they're going to work it out, and finally keep trying and trying and trying and then getting there with our help, with our support. That's the kind of biggest thing I think we can do. And it really, truly doesn't have to add to the mental load of parents. Like, I think there's so much pressure, like I should be holding a flashcard up to my baby, or I should be taking my child to these enriching experiences so that they can navigate primary school. I totally disagree. It's like, can we allow the everyday struggles to happen without jumping in and fixing it for our child? We can do that. We're going to set them up so much more strongly for success.
And really, some of that comes back to the mindset. I guess it's really what we're also preparing, that resilience mindset for our kids. As you said, there's so much of everyone's a winner these days and things like that, which is really hard because in life, not everyone's a winner. But I don't know how the conversations change to be that way. And yeah, sometimes you are going to lose that running race, and sometimes you're not going to get that. The Lego will break. But it's funny. My son, sometimes with my youngest, will ride up to school and he's like, I can't do it. I'm like, no, there's no such word. You can, I can. And he goes, Mummy, I'm starting to say I can. I'm like, yes, it's because the mindset part of I'm trying to get into him of it's the growth mindset. You can. But it's so tough. I think, as you said, for parents these days, we feel like we've got to be doing everything all at once, that move. But as parents, it's so challenging as well. And you feel, and I even felt this at the start of the year. My son needs to be able to read, write, he's behind and things like that.
That feeling behind.
That feeling behind. I'm like, well, if he could, I'm sure he could probably kick a football better than most of them, climb the tree better than most of them. So it's
look, I promise you, it's kicking the football or climbing the tree that matters. And that focus on that growth mindset. Another way to say it is you can't yet. You can't yet. That yet is really, really powerful in saying to kids, you can't do that yet. And that can make a really big difference as well.
So as we're going through it, so it's obviously the play-based, the emotional components and things. Are there some ways and scenarios that we can really help play these out? Because I know sometimes that's good. So there's some things at different phases of, as you said, with young kids with a ball, or even maybe as you're going into childcare of preparing that at the different phases. Because I know that probably what you do with a 15-year-old is going to be different to what you with a 3-year-old.
Completely. So I always like to talk to parents. There's like these 3 key opportunities to coach our kids. And the first, it's kind of, I frame it up like this. We've got a pre-game chat, I call it. So imagine the game is daycare drop-off or beginning of school. The game is whatever that thing is that your child might find hard or new. So our pre-game chat is how we prepare our child for what's coming. We have kind of what we do in the moment, which often relies on us leading a little bit. We're not assuming our child can say, okay, mummy, let's go. You can leave now. Bye bye. They're going to need us to lead the way a little bit. And there's a bit of boundary setting that happens in that kind of in the moment when we drop our child off at the new experience. And then we've got our post game recap. And there's an opportunity to do something called emotion coaching in that moment. So in a pre-game chat, this is our most incredible opportunity to prepare, particularly people that their child is starting new daycare, new preschool, new school, pre-game chat, especially if they're voiced, I don't want to go, or I'm nervous, or I don't want you to leave me, mum or dad, or whatever it is. We can say, yeah. So the first thing we do is we kind of all agree on what the issue is. Yeah, you're nervous. Starting school can feel like a big thing, or you don't want to go into the next room in preschool because you won't be with your best friend anymore. That's really hard. And we kind of all acknowledge this is kind of what the problem is, or this is what the thing is that we're about to tackle. And then we can say to our kids in this program chat, wonder what we can do to make that feel better. And then we have this opportunity. There's two big opportunities here. One is practical and practice. So for starting school or preschool, we might practice eating from our lunchbox, putting our shoes and socks on. We might even practice like driving to the school and looking at it and waving at it. We can practice anything in little chunks that's going to take away some of the anxiety. It also allows our kids' brain to practice kind of the emotions that come up in doing that thing in advance of it. When I work with parents who are struggling a lot with separation anxiety, with drop off, and we introduce the pre-game chat, the next drop off, like they just write to me going, this is magic. And I know, because kids, like we give them this opportunity to practice those emotions like an Olympian before a big race, they practice that. So that's a pre-game chat. Part of our pre-game chat is we might say, what if we sort of play this out? So that's when you get out your child's toys. Like I'm always a fan of, getting out my kids. I used to get out the Lego Duplo or something where we can use characters to play it out. And we can play out your child can have a go at being mummy and you can have a go at being them. And you can play out them dropping you off at preschool. They can be the opposite. Whatever the struggle is, using play is phenomenal. The reason this world of play, and kids will engage in this, like often they'll want to play schools after school, and you get to hear what's happening in their world. If you're willing to play schools, you can really hear a lot about their teachers actually saying and everything. But what we do there is, again, give them that second way of practicing it. But because we're combining that with their world of play, what happens is so much more emotional openness happens because their mind is open and mindful. In the moment, it's really about, and I talk about it a lot, it's leading our child, not expecting them at 2, at 3, at 5 to say, okay, I'm just going to go. Well, some kids will, but they may need us to say, I know it's really hard to say goodbye to mummy, but it is time to go. And exactly like we talked before we got on this, with your son, handing them over to that safe person. You are safe now with Mrs. Jones. I'm going to pop you in her hand and I can't wait to see you this afternoon. And us taking the lead and kind of being the person that leads them in that moment. And then our post-game chat might be like later that night, we're lying in bed with our child, or we're driving in the car a day later, we say, oh, that was a tough drop off. And you were not sure. And then mummy put you in Mrs. Jones's hand and then you settled and this is what happened. And we might again use that emotion coaching idea of, I wonder what we could do to make that easier next time. And I love that post-game chat because often that is when your child will say something like my son said in kindy, which is, what if you let me take my favorite toy to the gate? I'm going to give it a last squeeze and then you can mind it while I'm at school and then you bring it back. We did that for 2 weeks and then he completely settled. But it was kind of giving him that emotion coaching, that post-game chat opportunity for him to come up with this idea. For whatever reason, it felt like it would be the safety he needed. And ultimately what I would say with parents, anytime our child is navigating a transition, the key of all of this is that all these things I've just described, lower cortisol. So the biggest thing we're trying to do is increase safety and connection and lower cortisol while also leading our child and kind of guiding them in that direction.
It's so amazing that I think as parents, sometimes we feel like we've always got to be the solution and we've always got to have the answer. But I guess, as you said, in the post-game chat, our kids also do actually have the answers, and also being given the permission and probably the space to air that is also really important, but also really powerful for them to acknowledge it as well.
Yeah. And ultimately it can feel like our kids are giving us a hard time sometimes, but they really want to go well. They don't want to be the kid crying at drop off either. So giving them that opportunity. And sometimes they can't, especially if it's a 2-year-old, they may not be able to come up with that kind of sophisticated solution yet. And we can say, what if we had a little snack in the car at pickup? Or what if we, you can guide them in terms of little things you think might help them get through. I love the idea of something in the car for a child that doesn't like leaving the park, the transition out of the park, right?
Yeah.
How do we soften that? We have a pre-game chat. I know it's hard to leave the park. When it's time to go, I'm going to give you this 1-minute warning and then I'm going to guide you out. We then do the boundaries. We help them in the moment. We say it's time to go. But we've kind of come up with that idea in advance of snack in the car or your favorite toy, something that might assist you with that transition.
And what about managing the emotions? There's obviously the emotion of there, but kids can also get tired. And I know at the end of the day, during transitions, as you said, they're trying to hold it all together. If they're at, childcare or at kinder or at school. I guess when they're away from parents, and I often have this experience that they're perfect little angels. They come home and it's like they know they're there, and all the emotions just seem to pop open like a bottle that's got too much fizz. Is there a way that we can also manage that? Because I guess there's transitions at the start of the day, and I guess also
Yeah.
at the end.
The biggest thing I would say is the way we view that is everything. So if we can view that as the world's biggest compliment, and I know that is not how it feels. I mean, it feels like the world's biggest inconvenience and insult, but actually this is your child saying, you are my safe base. You are the person that I trust enough to let all the warts and all show, right? So trusting that it's normal and it's healthy. The biggest thing I'd say is I know it's counterintuitive and we could get so deep into kind of attachment and why we struggle when our kids struggle. But the truth is, if we can just trust this has to come out somewhere, this stuff has to fizz and pop and overflow, I'd be saying to parents, catch your child on what I call an emotional climb. If you feel like you're walking on eggshells and you can feel that they are going to blow, rather than kind of dance until it happens at bedtime, I'd be going, look at your child and almost lean in and go, yeah, I see you. Let's do it. And often it will be when we kind of set a boundary around, I get it. You don't want to brush your teeth or go to have a bath or get your pajamas on, but I'm going to move you forward into that boundary. Our child will lose it. And actually we can kind of go, yeah, they actually need to do this. And it's when we set that loving kind of bumper around them. And sometimes you allow flex and sometimes you say, yeah, I get it. You'd really like more TV. I'm going to pop the remote up here and away. And I get it if this is hard. But rather than kind of trying to shut down the meltdown that comes, I'd say sit in it, go to it, go to your child, open your body, be as close as you can without making it worse. And all you have to do is try to survive that without losing it yourself. And trust that it's right.
And that's hard in that moment.
I know. And know that even me, like as a parent educator, I've been practicing this intensely for 10 years, over 4 children. I still doubt myself completely in those moments. I still think, what if I'm wrong? What if this isn't going to work? What if I'm, and it always works, but it feels like 1 minute in your child's meltdown will feel like 1,000 hours, right?
Oh,
And I think just knowing the other thing, the biggest thing we can do, offer yourself compassion. This is really hard. I'm tired too. I've had a big day at work. I do not want to be sitting in this meltdown right now. I'm doing the best that I can. And often if we can say to ourselves, I'm doing the best that I can and my best is enough, often that compassion for ourselves will flow to our child. And so is my child. My child is doing the best that they can. We're all doing the best that we can. And that is good enough. And we will get through this and this moment will pass. We're trying to do a bit of that. And like I said, main goal is not to lose it ourselves. Sometimes we will. And when we do, we try to use that as an opportunity when we can to repair, get the relationship back on track.
yeah. It's so important. You certainly see during those big transition phases, the emotions, particularly from kids, but even at times from adults, can really boil over because even as parents, like these transitions as well they can be quite stressful. And sometimes I know that our stress can also then become a factor for our kids as well.
Of course. And if you just had a call from the teacher saying your child is not settling they're disrupting others, or you need to go and see an OT or whatever the call is you've had, and you're like, and the shame and the worry and somehow am I already behind in this race and I've missed something and I've gotten this wrong. And sometimes then our child is having an emotion completely separate, but we're already in that state of worry, and then they're flipping out and then we're flipping out, you know, but we do the best that we can.
Yeah, it's one big volcano sometimes and things like that. So, as parents, if we are going through some of those emotions, how can we also try and emotionally regulate? So, and then sometimes I know personally, I feel like I'm this sponge
Mm.
uh, and trying to manage emotions because it's also quite hard. How can we, as adults, try to manage those emotions in ourselves?
Oh, look, one of the biggest things we can do, I mean, this is a world where the information overload is massive. But, to plug myself, one of the reasons I wrote my book is because I wanted a way that was accessible for parents. The first part of it is all about working out essentially what you need to do to regulate your emotions is number one, work out why you feel the way you do about feelings. Most of us feel pretty happy when our kids are happy. Most of us feel pretty triggered when our kids are triggered by something. And to give you an example of how our upbringing impacts our parenting, most dad or men will describe to me that when their children are defiant, that is when they feel the most triggered, the most reactive. Most women or mums will describe to me when their child whinges or whines, they feel like the most, nails down a chalkboard, right? And think about little girls and little boys back in, again, the olden days. Little boys were not allowed, don't you muck up, don't you be defiant. That's the thing they would have got smacked for or punished for. And little girls were told, if you don't turn that frown upside down, the wind will change. Don't be whingy, be pleasant. And so, actually, so much of our reactivity around our children is not about our children at all. It's about how we feel about feelings. So, step one, you need to work out how you feel about feelings. And you can do that through seeing a psychologist or a parenting coach, or you could do Circle of Security Parenting. You could read my book. That's step one. Step two is actually self compassion. It's then taking that little bit of knowledge and being really kind to yourself as you flail around like we all do and do the very best you can. And it will feel awkward and messy. And you're always learning on that first child. Like you never it's like you never graduate. So the second thing I'd say, it's all self compassion. It's all kindness. It's all self acceptance and saying, yeah, now that I know what I struggle with, I still struggle. It's just that I can now be kind to myself and put more things in place because I know, oh, my kid's being really whingy. I'm going to find that really hard because that was something that wasn't tolerated for me. Doing the best that I can. I'll step away if I need to. I will, I'll try to manage that without getting triggered in the moment. We will all get triggered in the moment sometimes, especially if we're tired and we have financial stress and, mortgage stress and school overload stress. We're still going to always sort of struggle. And the third thing I'd say is we're shooting to do the stuff that I teach anyway around 30% of the time. So we're not shooting to regulate every emotion our child has. And it's not even like, 30% will get you done. It's like 30% is actually ideal. You actually don't want to sit on the floor, stop and drop for every single feeling your child ever has, because that will not be in the best interest of them. And it will certainly lead to burnout for us as well.
Yeah, amazing. So, Jen, is there anything else around transitions that you think are really important for preparing, our children? I know that the transition isn't necessarily as well, as you said, in a week or a month. It's actually that year, particularly say if you're going into school. But there's also a run-up period, I know, as well of that talking, preparing, I guess that pre-game chat as well. Is there anything else that you think that is really important for parents and also for children
I
in
would
transition?
love to finish with some connection hacks that I think can lower cortisol. Because what we're looking at with transitions often, even say someone's having a second baby, that older child will start to act up or struggle with behavior, usually 6 weeks out. They can sense there's change in the wind and we're going to see behavior change. People will see that before often kids start school, and then we'll definitely see it in that year afterwards. So really viewing it as the connection your child has with you and them up until about the age of 15, you are the center of the universe. From 15 onwards, no, you're not. They think you're wasting oxygen on planet Earth. So while you're the center of your child's universe, you have this incredible opportunity to be the rudder that just kind of settles them. And connection is the currency that makes all the difference. So, number one, increase mini moments of connection. High fives, fist pumps, just delighting your child for no reason. Kind of just go, I love watching you play sport. So I love seeing that big smile of yours. little moments really, really matter. Brag about your child within their earshot, blow them kisses, all of that. The second thing we can do is try to have a little bit of one-on-one special time once a week, once a month, whatever you can fit in. Only 10 minutes is all you need. This is as effective on a 2-year-old as it is on a 13-year-old. I absolutely love it when we join them in their world. So just one-on-one, you name it, you carve it out, and you really kind of got a love time with you. Best part of my day. And then chuck them in at night and go, best part of my day today was when you and I got that time together. Third thing, for little kids under 5 particularly, actually for all kids, silliness and rough and tumble play. Your child is stuck. They don't want to put their shoes on. They're really tired. It's Friday. It's one more day at school and they just can't cope. Just try saying, does this shoe go on my head? Try to be silly or try to increase energy through silly games, chasing them like a monster, like even at 5, even at 8, they're not too old for that. So that kind of silliness. The final thing is every now and then go in for a hug and hold your child until they literally push you away and go, geez, bit needy. I've had enough now. And just wait until they completely wriggle away from you. What we do in that is we hand the power of the affection over to our child for just one moment. The average hug lasts for 3 seconds. For it to land for any human, it needs to last about 33 seconds. And every now and then I've seen with my boys, if I just go in for a hug and almost in my brain, I go, yeah, I'm in it for life. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah.
And I wait until they kind of really kind of eventually wriggle out. And you can just see their whole face softens and you've almost just done something really powerful in allowing them to be the ones that kind of ended that affection. So that would be my final thing. Always start with connection. It will lower cortisol. And then we can do the emotion coaching and the planning and everything else, but connection all the way.
Oh, amazing. I could talk to you all day about all parenting tips and things like that. You've always got so many gems of gold. So definitely check out Jen's Instagram account because she's always got some value and gems of gold to help you no matter where you are in your journey. And I always ask Jen, all guests, what do you do to fill your cup?
I probably do quite a lot of sporting related things. I walk with friends, I do weights with friends, I play basketball, play tennis. So I sound like an athlete, but really I'm just getting away from the house and doing something that takes my mind off the to-do list. And I find for me, if I incorporate friends and physical activity, that kind of is quite meditative for me. So that's what I do.
Amazing. So how can people find out more about you and connect with you?
Yep. So Instagram is Connected Parenting AU is my handle. My website is connectedparenting.com.au. I've got a book called Little People, Big Feelings. Any of those things should bring me up.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for such an informative chat today, Jen. Thank you once again for coming on the Working Mama podcast.
Absolute pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Working Mama podcast. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcast catcher. Please also feel free to contact me on any of the Working Mama social channels. Remember, Mama is MUMMA, or website www.workingmama.com.au. I would appreciate you to share this podcast with friends and colleagues, especially those that are parents managing the juggle. And I would really appreciate if you had to take the time out to leave a review of the podcast. Thank you and see you next time. Have a great week.